first of all with SLOs, student learning objectives. These are the state mandated ways that starting next year, teachers in non-tested content areas are going to be assessed. So there are basically 3 parts to each SLO or each student learning objective. So starting down here in the lower left corner, in the state guidelines, the SLO set up expectations and they could either be growth or mastery. So I, as a music educator, have as part of my SLO process expectations for my students, what I want my students to know and be able to do, and I can either measure growth or mastery. At the top, the next part of the SLO is the process. What am I going to teach to get my students there? What's that process going to look like? And then on the bottom, the other part of the SLO is what's the scoring look like? What targets am I going to set for my students? For example, 80% of my students will know what they're supposed to know and be able to do what they're supposed to do. That's a target. And then a tool to score that. Okay, so those are basically the 3 parts. Thank you. The 3 parts of the SLO. For you guys this year, you're focusing on 3F, and I wanted to show you how 3F relates to the SLO. In your 3F goal, expectations have to equal growth. The district has made that decision for you, so there is no option of just measuring mastery. And that expectation, that goal, is the biggest part of your work this year, right? The process is still there a little bit, and the scoring is still there a little bit, but you're really, really focused on that expectation, on that goal this year. And the district's thought was, this is a way to ease you into the SLO process, not to ignore the other pieces, but for this year, focusing on those expectations, okay? So that kind of sets the stage for this next little part that I want to share with you. So when I got really interested in assessment, those of you who know me know that I like plain language a lot. I don't like big words and I don't like long sentences, and so I said to Donna K. Beatty, help me boil down the questions I need to be asking myself into some plain language, because that's what I need. And she led me to think about these 4 questions. So anytime I wanted to assess my students, these are the 4 questions I asked myself. Do those questions make sense to you? Okay? I never went into a situation where I was assessing my students where I wasn't asking myself those questions. And while the 4th question might seem a little superfluous, or you might think, I'm not sure that I'm going to ask myself that every time, it actually does change the way you assess your students. If you think from the very beginning, how am I going to use this information? Who am I going to share it with? Am I just sharing it with students? Great. Do I also have to share it with parents? Do I also have to share it with my principal? That might change what I'm doing just a little bit from the very beginning. All right, for the next section, I'm going to give a disclaimer. Number 1 disclaimer, I am a music educator, not a visual arts educator. Number 2 disclaimer, I did this work on a Saturday afternoon with a cat in my lap and in a Snuggie. Okay? Number 3 disclaimer, this is not the best or the only way to think about your goals. What I try to do is take 3 of the district's 3F goals and explode them out into how might I teach that, what kind of evidence might I collect, and what kind of tools might I create to score that evidence. But I'm going to say it again. The ideas that I'm going to share with you are not the only ways to think about this, and certainly not the best ways. They are one way.